All right, welcome into the starting nine here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at 5 Reasons Sports or at Ethan J. Skolnick. We're typically here every Tuesday and Wednesday at 9 a.m. No episode yesterday, but we're getting back into a normal routine. We'll tell you about the topic and the guest here in a second. Before we do, I want to tell you about a great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We actually have 3 on this program. But the fantasy partner we want to tell you about is Underdog Fantasy. Go to underdogfantasy.com today. Yes, we know that everybody drafted their teams before the season, but you can still draft during the season and then not have to do anything else to it the entire rest of the year. So if you need a do-over, like some of the NFL teams, but surely your fantasy team does, you go to underdogfantasy.com. You sign up with 5RSN. That's the code there, 5RSN, the number 5RSN. You'll get $25 right off the top. They do have the player props there. They've got this really cool feature there in addition to the drafts too and the tournaments where you can basically go, head to head. So they have some head to head options and you pick one or the other and then pair a couple together and try to win. So they got some cool stuff in Underdog Fantasy. It's very secure, no issues with it at all. And they got a money back guarantee if there are any problems. So go to underdogfantasy.com. I'm going to be doing some drafts into the Thursday night game this week again, like I did last week. So join me there. And again, they're giving you $25. So, join for $25, play for $5, and then you can play a couple more times as well. So go to underdogfantasy.com, use the code 5RSN. All right, today's episode, we're going to talk Heat. It was a media day on Monday. I was there along with Alex Toledo. A little bit of a different kind of media day. Hello, good morning, Falcon. A little bit of a different media day on Monday. I've been to probably 15 of these over 25 years. And, some of them are just total chaos, like the big 3. I talked about this on 5 on the Floor. And they actually had to split that one up into 2 days. The first one was at the Heck Center at the University of Miami, where LeBron spent the whole time tapping the table. And Dwayne kind of took over the proceedings there because they just needed to introduce the big 3. And then they had a separate one the next day over at the arena. This one, everything was at the arena. Remember, there was none last year. They couldn't have a formal media day. Everything was on Zoom. So this was kind of a hybrid. They had a handful of us, 6 of us, actually, 3 from the Herald and us, and then Ira, of course, and Tim Reynolds from AP. We were all at the interview room where they brought in Eric Spoelstra and Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, who kind of snuck in during Kyle Lowry's thing to put a coffee cup on the table, and also Bam Adebayo. And then they opened it up to some Zooms for the people who were not there. And then they brought the rest of the players, including those up, to talk to the TV folks and take photos. And then some of them, did little mini pressers with us upstairs in the practice court, which actually is the first time I've been in the practice court in about a year and a half, which is a place that for a lot of us is kind of a second home because we tend to be up there all the time. So this is kind of where media coverage is going for the Heat this year. They're kind of dipping a toe back in with the permission of the NBA. So there will be more in-person access. We will be at some of the practices between myself, Alex Toledo, and Brady Hawk. But kind of what I got out of this media day was, I've said this on the pod, you kind of know how good a team is going to be based on how many players you're waiting to talk to. Like, if it's a year where Josh Richardson and Hassan Whiteside are the best players on the team, okay. But this time you had a sort of big 3. It's not the big 3, but it's a kind of big 3 that was talking to us. And then we were still waiting on Duncan and Tyler and Victor Oladipo, who to me was the most interesting person at media day, and others. And you just got the sense, okay, I mean, there's a team here. Like, they have put something together. We don't know what it's going to be yet until we see it on the court, but it looks promising. But here's the biggest thing I took out of it. To them, it feels promising. I always trust players before a season on how good a team is going to be. They know, okay? They've been around elite athletes their whole lives. Some of them have been around the NBA. So they played with all kinds of different players. They know before a season if they have a chance or not. And when I say a chance, I mean, for some teams, if you haven't been to the playoffs for a long time, like, say, I don't know, the Sacramento Kings, it's a chance at the playoffs. Or for a franchise like the Heat or, the Spurs or the Lakers or one of the more traditional powers over the past 20, 25 years, it's a chance to contend for a championship. Like, they know. And so because you get a sense from talking to them, whether or not they're talking themselves into it. Yeah, we can contend for the East. Josh Richardson is our best player. Okay. Or Yeah, we can contend for the East. We've got guys here who've won titles. We've got guys who've been all-stars. We've got a guy in Bam Adebayo who's entering his prime. We have young pieces who now got a whole offseason to kind of, be developed and get their legs back after what was a crazy one-year period. You know whether it's the first or the second, and it's definitely the second. They think they have a chance. That is the sense that I got out of media day. Now, again, they got to put it on the floor. We got to see how it fits. But here's the other thing about their group. There's not a lot of complicated fits. Like, there have been some teams, and this was like my issue with the team after like 16, 17, and that couple year period, is that Eric Spoelstra had too many options. He had a bunch of B- players, right? Like, they didn't have bad players. But like Dion Waiters, Josh Richardson, Hassan Whiteside, Justice Winslow, James Johnson, B- players. I mean, you were never going to get 35-point explosions from them or big time triple doubles or whatever, but there was competence there, at least when, Dion cared and Josh wasn't, stepping on the end line and that kind of stuff. There were B- players. Okay. And so, but he had so many of them. And it was like, okay, who do you use in this situation and with this guy? And how does this one fit with this guy? And that's why I thought 2 seasons ago, and I will say, because I've been wrong about a lot, but I was right about this. I liked the roster they put together 2 years ago around Jimmy Butler because it was, to me, uncluttered. It was pretty clear how Spoelstra was going to use certain guys. I think when you give Eric an uncluttered roster and allow him to tinker from there, he has a lot of success. When you give him a cluttered roster where it's like, okay, do you play this guy in this situation or this guy with this guy? I think sometimes he has some rotational issues. Okay. But he had an uncluttered roster 2 years ago. You could kind of tell, you needed Hero and Nunn to pop at a summer league to give you something, which both of them did, obviously. Okay. Nunn was a starter. Tyler Hero obviously did quite a few things his rookie season, but it was an uncluttered roster. It was pretty clear. Last year, there was a little bit more clutter. I think more of the clutter was what Duncan Robinson talked about. And I asked him, I said, looking back now, Duncan, was it harder to sort of accomplish things last year based on everything that you guys were going through, coming off of the bubble and everything else? And they didn't want to admit it at the time. But yes, he says we struggled to develop that kind of chemistry. We struggled. We were trying to replicate what we did on the bubble, and we couldn't. And you knew that. You watched it. It was a struggle, right? They weren't having a whole lot of fun. It wasn't as bad as, say, the 13-14 Heat season, where they definitely were not having fun, even after winning a title, or the 06-07 season, where they definitely were not having fun after winning a title. But sometimes after you have success, if you can't replicate it, it becomes frustrating. And I think that's what happened to them last season. It became frustrating, and their legs gave out. I'm not saying they would have beaten the Bucks, okay, if everything had broken right, but they had no chance. Looking back, they had no chance. Okay. Well, now they have a chance. They had a break. They're refreshed. Jimmy's got his buddy back, and they have an uncluttered roster. Like, this roster is not confusing at all. We know who the starters are going to be before camp starts. That's not always the case. There's usually a spot for the Heat that you're not sure about. We know PJ Tucker's going to start at the 4. Duncan Robinson is going to start with Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Kyle Lowry, right? We know that, right? We know what the bench is. To start with, you know that Tyler Hero is the 6th man. You know that beyond that, Dwayne Dedmon is the first big off the bench, right? Okay, we know those things. You know that Max Strus and Gabe Vincent are going to get the first shots at the 3 and at the 1. And then you may get, Yurtsevin. You'll get probably Markieff Morris as your 4th, sort of your 3rd big. Because I don't know if you're counting PJ Tucker as a big, but your 2nd big off the bench. We know these things. This is not a complicated roster for Spoelstra to figure out. So if it's not a complicated roster for Spoelstra to figure out, it allows him to, like I said, tinker within that, knowing you have your core. It's kind of like when I was taught to write, when I used to write, they always said, know the rules before you break the rules, right? You can use the word "and" to start a sentence. You're not supposed to, but when you do, then you got some creative license. Once everybody knows you kind of know you can write, that you know what you're doing, then when you do something that's not grammatical after that, you're like, okay, that person is doing it on purpose. Well, that's kind of the way I look at like using an NBA roster. If you have chaos in terms of the rotation, okay, nobody knows when they're going to play. The veterans are pissed off. The young kids can't get in any kind of rhythm. Well, if you have that, your team's probably not going to be very good. But if you have a core group, a core rotation, like we saw Spoelstra get to during the best year of the big three, 12-13, you can play off of that. And I think that's what Spo is going to do. Taking a couple of questions here before we bring on our guest, Royal Shepard, the host of Post Up 5R. As much as Tyler struggled at point guard last season with the work he's put in this offseason, do you see Spo going back to that from time to time? I do see it from time to time. But again, a lot of this is kind of clearing up the clutter. I think and sorry, because I haven't sent Royal the links. He's going to be upset at me. A lot of this is clearing up the clutter. So for Tyler, clearing up the clutter to me means giving him one role. Like, I understand the ambition of what they were trying to do last year. We were all for it on 5 on the Floor. We thought Tyler was going to be a starter, and we thought that they were going to give him the role that they gave him. It didn't work. I think they've acknowledged in retrospect. Now, some of it was short off season. Some of it was he was starting with Mo Harkless and Myers Leonard early in the season. I mean, remember, okay, there was chaos, right? Like I said, going into last year, we didn't know who the 5 starters were. It was Mo Harkless for one game, right? Then it was Myers Leonard. Later in the season, it was Trevor Ariza. But I think with Tyler, it is simply this. We're going to bring you off the bench about 7 minutes into the game, like we used to bring Dragic in. Okay? Score. Let Kyle handle the ball. Score. Kyle comes out. Maybe Gabe Vincent comes in. You'll take a little bit of a bigger burden of the ball handling responsibilities. Again, every kind of rotational question you guys are going to ask me, there is an easy answer for this season. A lot of it's intuitive. You can probably figure it out without my help. Last year, not as much. Some previous seasons, not as much. Who are you going to go to if this happens? I don't know. Duncan Robinson picks up 2 fouls early. Tyler comes in early this year. Okay. PJ Tucker picks up a couple of fouls early. You've got Markieff Morris. He's going to come off the bench. Bam comes out. Dedmon comes in. Okay, maybe you need a little bit more size at a certain point. Maybe Dedmon plays some with Bam. Maybe you want to be more dynamic and get some shooting out there. Put Jimmy at the 4 with Bam. Get Hero and Robinson on the floor together with Kyle. Like, there are easy answers to all of these questions. And then, of course, there's the big question, which is Victor Oladipo. And we'll get to that when it comes. This comes from Andrew Ethan. Any chances, rumors, we still upgrade the roster in the deadline? The deadline, yes. But it has become pretty clear they're not going to add a 15th full-time guy now. I mean, if you look at the names that they passed on, they're all names we've talked about that they've liked before or had here. Avery Bradley, Wes Matthews, Isaiah Thomas, who is represented by Jimmy Butler's agent. So there's a relationship there. All guys who probably on the surface would be considered upgrades from Gabe Vincent. They didn't bite on any of them. They do not want to pay the tax this year. It's not just about money. I'm not one of those who's always defended, the Arisons about not paying the tax. Okay, so I'm not a homer in this regard, but I do understand it this year. I get it. Like, if you can stay out of it this year, gives you the flexibility to go in the future because you avoid the repeater. I get it. So I don't think there's going to be an upgrade made at that point. I think if Dame Lillard or Bradley Beal or someone of that ilk gets, I need to get the bleep out of here by the trade deadline, then yes, they will obviously look. And yes, that's where Tyler Hero becomes a factor again. Because if you look at this roster, a 6-man who's averaging 18, who's 21 years old, becomes a very attractive lead piece in a trade like that. We just got to acknowledge it. I think everybody is happy that Tyler has come back in the shape he's come in because he can help the Heat, but also it helps the Heat if they end up wanting to make a move. All right, we're going to bring on our guy, Royal Shepard, here in a second. Before we do, I'll tell you about another great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. You know that the infrastructure here in South Florida sucks, right? Need some of that infrastructure money, that bill to finally be signed. So what happens? Your wheels get screwed up, right? Okay, I mean, they're cracked. They need to be fixed. They need to be repaired. And maybe they just need to look better, right? You want to refinish them. You want to use the Vice colors since you're not going to see those on the court this year. You want to use the Dolphins aqua and orange, but maybe when they get back over 500. Go to U-Brake Wheel Fix. It's ubrakewheelfix.com. That's where you go visit our friend Mark. They're based right there in North Miami. This is where you get your wheels repaired, refinished. Whatever it is that you want them to do to them, they can do to them. And if you mention 5 Reasons, you're going to get a discount. So go to U-Brake Wheel Fix. There it is. Again, you can find them down in North Miami. It's actually really cool, the process that they do down there. And you just go check it out while you're waiting for your car. But yeah, they can do all kinds of cars. If you look at their Instagram account, like it's high end stuff. Okay. So look, they can handle a Corolla. It'll be fine. Okay. Go to ubreakwheelfix.com, ubreakwheelfix.com. You see the 5-star reviews down there, and big Miami sports fans too. So go talk to Mark about the Dolphins, maybe not so much the Canes these days. He's a big Canes fan, and of course the Heat. So go to ubreakwheelfix.com, get yourself a free estimate. Mention 5 reasons, get 15% off. All right, this is my last time hosting Starting 9 because every time I have this guy on, he becomes the host. He is the host of Post Up 5R, which you'll be catching after every Heat game. That's right. We work everybody hard over here. Every Heat game here, including some of the preseason games. I don't know if we've discussed that yet. And that'll be sponsored by our friend Lynette over at A Aggressive Insurance. We got our guy Royal Shepherd. We are bringing him on here. I think of you as a Dolphin, Victor Oladipo. I think of you as a Dolphin guy now. Right? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the hell's going on there.
I was a Dolphin and a Heat guy last night, Ethan. I did the extra yard and the clutch corner both last night. Then I'm doing the Starting 9, and I'm doing Donald Daily today, man. So you get your money's worth today, Ethan.
Yeah, whatever money it is I'm spending, which isn't much. All right, so we got Royal. You can follow him at Royal A Shepherd on Twitter, and I guess host of Post Up 5R with Ariel, Gad, Brian, and the rest, and whoever else you could round up that night. Basically, that's sort of how we do things.
Ricky J. Mark, man, we got.
Those are pregame guys. Those are before floor guys. You're just borrowing them. That's really, I gotta have a core. I got Brady and Greg on that one too. We gotta have a core group. I don't know. I don't know how Brady has hours of the day. Also, an announcement before I get to Royal. Brady Hawk, for those who follow his work, is going to be taking a more formal role on 5 on the Floor. And also our guy, Alex Toledo, who still won't get an adult sign-in name on Twitter, Tropical Blanket, but he's actually going to do some work for Clutch Points, covering the Heat for them, but still doing everything he does for us. We're padding the bench is what we're doing here at 5 on the Floor so we can get through an entire season. But where I want to get to you on this from a fan perspective, we've talked a lot about optimism and kind of where fans are on this team. And I think over a quarter century of Pat Riley, there's an expectation always that the Heat will be competitive. I think even in the years that didn't end up going that well, there's an expectation they'll figure it out. But there are tiers to this, right? There are levels to this, as our guy Meek Mill might say, right? There are levels to this. You didn't think I was going to drop that.
No.
So, and to me, there are some teams you come into a season and you're like, okay. I mean, you have LeBron, Dwayne, and Chris Bosh. Like, we know what the expectations are, okay? And there are other seasons, as I mentioned, no disrespect, but you have Josh, whenever you say no disrespect, it's disrespect, but it's Josh Richardson, Justice Winslow, and Hassan Whiteside are your best players. That you're kind of capped, right? Like, there's a certain level. Where do you put the optimism for this particular group?
I think right now, we're in that second tier team in Eastern Conference. Of course, you have Brooklyn and Milwaukee that are in a tier by themselves, but we're right there in the next group with Philly, Boston, those types of teams. Atlanta, I guess, is kind of trying to sneak their way into consistently being in that conversation. But I think on the for the Heat, we have second tier floor with first tier ceiling, depending on what we get from Victor Oladipo. By the way, that picture that you took of him was not flattering, Ethan J. Skolnick.
I mean, all I do is snap it. He looks how he looks. What am I supposed to do?
Upgrade your iPhone to the 13 Max Pro, which mine should be in the mail today.
Was that going to change? Was that going to change the expression? Let me ask you this: for those, because no, you're not the first person who said that to me, and everybody knows I'm a bad photographer. But literally, like, he's in front of. He was talking to 4 of us. It was my question, so he was looking at me. All right. And I'm taking video, and I decided just once or twice to just hit the little button when you're taking video to get the photo there. So I don't have to take it as a screenshot. And I mean, that's the way he was. His arms around you all the time. What do you want me to do?
Listen, bro, we knew you were a bad photographer. We didn't know you were the Hassan Whiteside of photographers. There was no effort in that whatsoever. You just took the first damn picture that you could get. But yeah, I think Victor is probably the most important piece in order for us to see kind of like where the ceiling for this team is. So I think the healthier that we can get him, the more active that we can get him acclimated, then that'll give us a much clearer picture of what tier this team really should be considering. But I think right now, the floor for this team is that second tier in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I think so too. I've said repeatedly that I do think I changed my view a little bit when I was there. I think I got a little more positive about this, but I've kind of been saying that this is more of a playoff proposition to me than a regular season proposition. There are certain teams that feel like they're built for the regular season. I remember covering some of those Tim Zoe teams, and like their third year together, like they got off to a flying start. Like they'd been together, they knew each other, and it's just Tim was orchestrating everything. They were pushing pace, and they got off to like a 18-3 start. And you just knew this team, to me, they're going to take a little bit of time. I just think that they're more of a playoff proposition because I think that Spoelstra has to manage the ages on the roster a certain way. So I don't think, I think if his push is going to be seed or health, I think this year it's going to be towards health to get yourself into the position to be really dangerous in the postseason. And here's the thing, Roy, we talk about the tiers in the East. One of the two teams you mentioned could implode at any time. I mean, literally, sure. Kyrie could run off and never come back. I mean, he could Ricky Williams it. We just don't know. So I think on paper, yes. I think honestly, Milwaukee's been kind of sort of silently disrespected this offseason. I don't feel like anybody's really giving them their champion props. To me, they're more of a concern still than Brooklyn because we know what they've done it. They know what they are.
Yeah, I think that's in large part because of the circumstances of last season. Some people are treating it a lot like the bubble in terms of giving Milwaukee their credit for that championship. However, like you have to understand that Giannis put on an all-time performance in that finals, and he should be given the just due as a two-time MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. Like the man has been on a tear, and is a legit conversation for being for being the best player in the league. So I think that Milwaukee has to be getting their credit, but I'm not blind. Like I know that that's a good team. They're still a good team. They're a phenomenal team. They're a champion. So that group also has that experience that we're talking about come playoff time. And I think they should be a team that everybody keeps their eye on in terms of talking about where we can land in this season.
You mentioned Vic being the wild card, and I agree with that. But I think of the players who are on the playing from the very beginning of the season, to me, it's Tyler is the wild card. And I know you've had a certain view on Tyler, the agenda, you and Ariel and others. And look, I understand it, and at some point, I'm somewhat responsible for it. I think he's still upset at the report that Ira and I came out with about Focus from last season. Which again, we're just reporting what we're hearing. I mean, it's not not my personal opinion. But I don't think we ever said. I know we never said, although it wasn't aggregated this way. We never said he didn't care about basketball. That was never that. Right. It was that they wanted him to work on his body. That's what they wanted him to kind of get in the other gym. Okay. Not just, where he's shooting baskets and work on that so that he could withstand, what he's going to need to is, teams pushing him around a little bit and that kind of stuff. And especially defensively, getting stronger. Has the agenda changed at all for you when you see he has put in the work this offseason? There's no question.
No, for sure. So I've been kind of backpedaling this thing for a couple of weeks now in terms of my Tyler agenda because I think I'll get to his body in a second, but just the role that he's going to be placed in this year gives him a level of comfort, taking some of the things off of the plate. And I alluded to this last night on the Clutch Corner, where his new space in life, being a dad, you know what I mean? And now being taken out of the picture that they mentioned where, it's the big three. It was him, Jimmy, and Bam last year. Now it's Jimmy, Bam, and Kyle. So he kind of feels like the ex-girlfriend. Shout out to Simba for saying that. And so you guys mentioned it on 5 on the Floor, which people can catch on Podbean, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere that you listen to your podcast. But you guys talked about it on there where it wasn't the upper body that was most impressive. It was his legs that kind of stuck out to me in the physique change with Tyler. It definitely looks like he's added strength. And so that lends itself to me being more positive about the things that he can do. So his newfound role, the time that he spent working on his body this summer, all of those things playing to, me changing my tune a little bit. But, I'm a flip-flopper. I can go right back to crushing this man as soon as he gets on the court.
Well, also, as soon as Bradley Beal decides he's had enough of Washington, D.C., I'm out. that you're done. But I do think, I mean, again, you're talking kind of about what is the theme of this show, which is that there is a simplification to this team this year. It does feel like things are being taken off of guys' plates, being made easier. Like even Bam, okay, and I recommend everybody listen. I took the night off last night, but you can listen to Greg host with Brady and Alex on 5 on the Floor. But even with Bam, yes, they want him to do more, but they are actually going to be simplifying things for him in the sense that Kyle Lowry simplifies things for him. It's like And Jimmy said that. It's like, just go be you. Like, you don't have to bring up the ball every time. You don't have, because Kyle's going to make it easier. All they want from Bam is honestly an attitude change. Okay. They're not looking to put more on his plate. I think it is take some off. And I think that's what Riley was getting at there, as well. Thank you, Gad. But I just think it makes it, they're trying to make things easier for all of them. Let me give you this. What is, other than Vic, okay? Because I think obviously Vic has a tendency, this is his reputation, of kind of being all over the place with things that he says, okay? And that's why I don't know what to take seriously of what he said the other day. I thought I liked that he gave an introspective answer to my question about what it's like to go from being an all-star to all of a sudden you're at the bottom in terms of, contractually. I mean, you can't go any lower, okay, than he's at right now. But I don't know what to make of what he talks about with his timetable or what the people talk around. But so other than Vic, give me the one thing on this team that could really make it pop. Like before Vic gets back, like some player, something that changes the equation here.
I think the contributions that we get from PJ, the combination of PJ Tucker and Markieff Morris is the dynamic that's we're certain what we're going to get from PJ on the defensive end. But in terms of that offensive corner 3 efficiency, yeah, he's lauded for it, but it wasn't as it wasn't as good as what people have been hyping it up to be last season. If we can get that, and I think Markieff talked about it himself about how he can kind of get back to what he was when he was with the Lakers. If he can do that, then that means we have a legitimate 1-2 punch at the 4, a position of weakness for this team for years. We have a legit 1-2 punch that can essentially raise the floor, because that takes some of the burden off of Tyler in the second unit as a scorer, because Markieff can pick up some of that slack. And if we can get that from both of those guys, then I think that adds to what this team is. I think we know the floor of what they're going to give us, the baseline, but I kind of want to see them raise that floor to, them kind of turning back the clock just a little bit, like we've seen people in their first year with the Heat do before.
Yeah, Markieff's an interesting player in the regard that if you go back to his Phoenix days, they played through him a lot. Like, I mean, he was a legitimate scorer. I saw him score 35 against the Cavs when I was covering LeBron that year in Cleveland. Like, I mean, there is. Well, I know. I was in Cleveland. I mean, but I had to cover Kyrie for a year. Just okay. Most condescending. I've said this before. Most. I know he has a bunch of it. Most condescending NBA player I've ever encountered. It's just, and I've been around 25 years. Oh yeah, no doubt. But conversation for another day. But Markieff, he scored like 35. He has a skill set there. He was not good last year. I think we have to be fair about that. He was not good. And you're right. PJ's offensive numbers. PJ is a complicated player in the regard that, what he does, and he does it well to help you win, but the stats are going to look like worse than Shane Battier's stats. So it's just, it's one of those things you need to accept. All right, we're going to finish here with Royal here in a second. Before we do, you can see it up at the top right corner. You need to do your betting at BetUS. Go to betus.com. This one is the code 5. I wish we had just one code for everything. I'm sorry. 5, F-I-V-E. Go to betus.com. Hello, Warren Sapp, one of the other more condescending athletes I've ever encountered, but he's a great spokesperson for BetUS. So go to betus.com, use the code 5, F-I-V-E, and you'll get 125% bonus. They got a great live betting platform. Hedge against yourself during the game. If you were confident that the Dolphins were going to do something before a game and then you realize, oh, no, they're not, bet against them at halftime. I did that last week. So go to betus.com. betus.com. Use the code 5. Get 125% bonus. All right, let's close here because you are on our Extra Yard program and you've infiltrated the ranks of Kai and Juan and Michael
without your permission. By the way, I just kind of put myself.
I mean, nobody asked for permission. Nobody asked me for permission anymore. They just asked for forgiveness. That's it. That's sort of, it's in my life also. But let's get to it. The Dolphins and the Heat. You're sort of a newfound Dolphin fan because you are a.
No, I'm not. Not when they play like that. I'm still a Green Bay fan.
I was gonna say you're a Packer fan. I mean, how could you not be? I mean, look at what Aaron did the other night. 37 seconds, no timeouts. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, bring on Mason Crosby.
Ethan, my wife is giving me this look. I'm a full-fledged Dolphins fan.
Okay, that's fine. You're a full-fledged. Well, I understand. Okay, I get how that works. Yes, I gotcha. but let's go to it here. Let me ask you one question. Okay. Where the two franchises are right now, okay? Where they are. Is it more significant for the Heat to win a championship or the Dolphins to just win a damn playoff game? What would be the bigger?
I think the phrasing of that changes the answer to that question. You said which would be more significant?
Yes.
Because people have seen the Miami Heat win a championship over the course of the past 10 years, then I think the Dolphins winning a playoff game would be more significant. Which one would I prefer? I would always take the championship. But
no, I know.
The more significant one would be the Dolphins to win a playoff game because it shows that they're at that next level of progression. You know, last year we were talking about how the team was 2 years ahead of schedule, and now they look like they've taken another 3 steps back. So to see this team be able to put themselves in contention and take that next leap into being a legitimate playoff team would definitely be it'll be more. I guess I don't know. A lot of Dolphins fans are weird. Like they put this team on a pedestal that I've never dreamed that they could be put on.
Well, they put it on a pedestal, but they're also freaked out all the time. One of the most amazing stats, I don't think you could find this stat in any other city. The Miami Heat, the other team in town, major team, has been to 6 NBA finals in the time plus 5 years. Okay, with giving the Dolphins a 5-year head start. The Heat have been to 6 NBA finals since the Dolphins have last won a playoff game. 6. There's no other city in the country where there is a disparity between the two teams like that. You guys could all look around in LA. The Lakers, but the Dodgers have won. Okay, other teams are. There is no other disparity in this town, and it's why it's like we nitpick about the Heat. Oh, they're only a second-round team this year. Meanwhile, with the Dolphins, well, they scored a touchdown in a playoff game. That would that would be like a Knicks parade.
But the Dolphins are honestly the most loyal fan base that I can dream of because no matter what they look like the year before, you can always find that one that's predicting Super Bowl. And that to me is the reason why I'm excited about my eventual transition into full-fledged Dolphin fandom because anybody with that level of optimism can only add to my life, Ethan, because I don't see it. If they could help me see it, then they've done a minor miracle.
Have you really interacted with our Dolphins guys? Optimism is not the word that I would use.
Well, my wife is the primary Dolphins fan. She is one of those we're winning the Super Bowl every year type people. So that is, I experience that every day. So I just put that across the board. That's how all Dolphins fans are.
All right. Well, he's more on a Heat guy on our channel, so I will give him that. I don't know how the hell he ended up on other stuff. Check him out at PostUp5R, Royal A. Shepherd on Twitter. Check out our sponsors, BetUS.com. Use code 5. You Break Wheel Fix, mention 5 reasons. I got to remember all these. And Underdog Fantasy. I'm going to be doing some drafts into tomorrow night. Actually, Royal is part of that one as well. And that one, the code is 5RSN. Get your $25 off. We'll be back next week. And again, check out the latest 5 on the floor with Greg, Alex, and Brady. And the latest Clutch Corner is still up there on the YouTube channel too. So make sure you check that out. Have a good day.
And extra yard.